Well, good morning again. All right. Hey, it's great to see everyone on this Father's Day. And fathers, happy Father's Day. Also, let me see. Erasmo was teaching me this earlier. Feliz Dia dos Pais. Did I say it right? All right, yes, there you go. All right, good. The rest of you, just Google translate it and you'll figure out what I said. No. Very good. They had the band today. They were great. And we were like, is that it, right? Isn't it like they catch you on the edge of your seat? I was ready for more. I guess they just wanted me to preach longer today, so it'd be good. You're like, get out of here earlier, right? Yeah. It's Father's Day. People are going to be rushing to the restaurants, right? We got to get going. We got a lot to do, right? So very cool. But dads, thank you for being here today. And thank you for your families. And fathers, just... my goodness, isn't it the most, it's the best title that I've had to date, is it not, guys? To be called a father is pretty cool. I can't wait to wear the grandfather tag here in the next couple weeks. That's going to be pretty amazing too. But being a father is pretty cool. And dads, I'm not preaching to dads or anything like that today, but I did want to encourage you guys today really, really quick before I get into the message. And I really want to challenge dads to love your family well. Love your family well. What does it mean? To love your kids. Love your kids. Put them before just about anything. When I say just about is, man, you got that wife, right? Fellas, love your kids, but love your wife. Love your wife. You know, some guys are just knuckleheads. Sometimes we're knuckleheads. I was told, yeah. I was told a long time ago, and it is so true. Fellas, and it even goes for moms here as well. Do you know what your kids need more than anything? They need to know that you love them. But you know what they need? They need to know that daddy loves mama and that mom loves dad. That's what your kids need. Because you know what? When your kids know that you love mom and that you put mom above everything else, that's where you're willing to sacrifice for mom, you're putting her first, you know what your kids do? Your kids feel loved and secure. They feel safe. Dads, love your family, love your kids, love your spouse, love your wife. And fourthly, and most importantly, love Jesus. Love God. Love God. Put him first above everything. Order your home around the things of God. Put him first. Because then you know what happens whenever you put him first? The order just kind of falls into place for you. So there's my short little challenge to you fellas here today, okay? You dads, continue doing a good job. Love your families well. Love your kids. Love your spouse. But love Jesus more than anything, okay? All right, guys, happy Father's Day. Well, in the last couple weeks here, being summer, I can't believe we're already to Father's Day and already to the third Sunday of summer. We've been in this series that we're going all summer long, talking about the things that Jesus did and a lot of his teachings, the healings, and all the incredible miracles and stuff, calling it the dust of the rabbi. And our goal, and my goal as your pastor, is to encourage you and challenge you to walk closer to Jesus. And that whenever you come to church, that you leave different, hopefully. Hopefully you've had an encounter with God, a face-to-face encounter with him. And like we've talked about the dust, you know, it's where you've been so close to him, to where his dust is all over you. I want you to leave dusty, okay? And that it doesn't just stay here. But throughout the week, you are cultivating your relationship with God and letting it show up in your life in every aspect of your life. How you treat others, how you treating your families, how you're living out your faith in the workplace, how you're living that out at school, teenagers, how you're living out your faith there in your neighborhoods. How are you loving your neighbor? That's our goal, is for us to be more like Jesus, is it not? For us to be more like him, for us to walk closely to him, for us to be so close to where his dust is upon us. Well, let me ask you, how many times, how often do we miss the presence of Jesus in our everyday lives? To where, yeah, you got the Sunday thing down, right? You know, you come in and you get in church and you hear the preaching of the word and you get around other Christians and things are great whenever you're here between, you know, some of you from 8 to noon, some of you from 10:30 to 11:30, whatever time you're here, that your faith is really easy right now, right? Well, let me ask you, whenever you leave here, as you go through the week, how often do you notice Jesus working in your life throughout the week? I believe so many times we miss the presence of Jesus in our everyday lives. Why? Because we rush from one moment to the next. You know, we have emails, we have errands, we have appointments, we have obligations. All of us have, our plates are full. There are times I look at my life and think, how am I going to ever add anything else to it? There's just no space. You been there? Our lives are busy. And we assume as Jesus followers that he's in the big things, right? The crisis moments, those times where, man, when the world's falling apart, we're like, oh yeah, we need God. And we're focused on that. We need him. We want him to be in the middle of everything. We want the miracles to happen. We want those mountaintop moments. But what if he's just as present in the carpool lane or the checkout line? Or the quiet moments that we barely notice? What if he's present in each and every one of those? Because Jesus is at work in the places that we often overlook. In the conversations that we have with a friend, in the moments you stop to listen, in the silence after a long day. Now, silence in my life never really kind of happens. You know, you guys know I've had 4 daughters, right? If you've ever been around my house, there is never a moment of silence, you know? Once they get home, it is nice. During the day, everybody goes off and does the school, work, other things, and when it's just me at the house, and now I got this stinking dog, Bailey's dog, like, oh, Lordy mercy. Little bear. But it's kind of nice. It's quiet. And I can think. And I know I better relish it because they're all coming home in a little bit. And it's not going to be that way anymore, right? You guys been there? You living that right now? You living it? Yep. But you know, some moments feel insignificant until we look back and realize how much that they shaped us. That conversation, that decision, or a quiet act of faith. That's what makes the story that we're going to be looking at today with Jesus really kind of surprising in a lot of ways when we get down and really think about it. Because we're looking at Jesus' first miracle this morning. And it didn't happen, you know, on the battlefield. It didn't happen there in a religious space. It didn't happen in a synagogue or anything like that. It happened at a wedding reception when they ran out of wine. And I know all you people out here all going, yeah, that's the worst thing ever going to happen, right? Yeah, it is a crisis. No, it's not a crisis, okay? But why there? Why this moment? Why did Jesus perform this miracle right here? Because Jesus doesn't just show up in the crisis. He shows up in the common, ordinary things in life. And what Jesus has the ability to do, and what I want us to understand, that he doesn't want to just be present in just the big things, but in the everyday things, is that he wants to transform every moment of our life. He wants to transform not only the big things, but the little things. Let me ask a question. When was the last time you looked for Jesus in the everyday, ordinary moments of life? When's the last time? When's the last time? Let's read this in John chapter 2 this morning. You can follow along on the screens, on your devices, in the app, in the notes, however you're doing this morning. John chapter 2, starting in verse number 1. It says, on the 3rd day there was a wedding at Cana in Galilee. And the mother of Jesus was there, Mary, right? Jesus also was invited to the wedding with his disciples. When the wine ran out, the mother of Jesus said to him, they have no wine. And Jesus said to her, woman, what does this have to do with me? He's like, this ain't my party. This ain't my wedding, you know, right? He says, my hour has not yet come. And just like a mother, I've got one and she's here today, right? She like, you know, I can just see her doing this like, yeah, just shut up over there. I'm talking to these other people, right? And Jesus and Mary here looks at the servants there. It says his mother said to the servants, just do whatever he tells you. Just do whatever he tells you. You know, don't mind him. Just do it. And then Jesus, and she didn't say anything back to Jesus here, right? She just looks at the servants and says, do whatever he tells you. And then it goes on and says, now there were 6 stone water jars there for the Jewish rites of purification, each holding 20 or 30 gallons. Jesus said to the servants, fill the jars with water. And they filled them up to the brim. And he said to them, now draw some out and take it to the master of the feast. So they took it. And when the master of the feast tasted the water, now become wine, and did not know where it came from, though the servants who had drawn the water knew, the master of the feast called the bridegroom and said to him, everyone serves the good wine first, and when people have drunk freely, then the poor wine. But you have kept the good wine until now. This, the first of his signs, Jesus did at Cana in Galilee and manifested his glory, and his disciples believed in him. This is an incredible story, and so much here. I have never preached on this before, I don't think ever. I don't ever remember actually teaching specifically on this, probably referenced it at times. But as I got in here, there are some incredible things for us to draw from today that I can't wait to share with you over these next few moments. But number one this morning, I want you to see that Jesus sees the small moments. He sees the small moments in our lives, and he wants to be involved in those moments in our lives. This wasn't a crisis. On the surface, this was not really that big of a deal, right? It was an embarrassment more than anything, and a social embarrassment to the one throwing the reception right here. But here's the thing. Jesus still saw the need. Mary saw it, and then Jesus stepped into it. He saw the need. He steps into the small moments. Mary brings the problem to him. And you know what? Here's the thing about Mary. Mary knew exactly who Jesus was. She knew that he was the one who could take care of this issue. And she trusted that he could do something about it. No one else there could have taken care of this problem. Only Jesus could. So she goes to the one who she knows could take care of it. He knew what to do. Let me ask you here in your lives, what need in your life, though sometimes seems too small, to ask God or ask Jesus to get involved in? What seems, how many times have we walked past things to where we think that is just too insignificant to bother God about? You ever been there? Stacy has been incredible about this with my girls, raising our kids over the years. And so many times she has been so good at pointing our girls to just the normal everyday life things and drawing out that, pointing our girls to Jesus in them. You know, here to give you just even little examples. You know, the girls or whoever, Molly now, or there was Bailey. It probably wasn't Bailey studying for a test, but it was probably, Molly actually studies. I'm sorry, Bailey. Yeah. See? Yeah. You guys just got to know Bailey, yeah. Yeah, her grandfather would tell her mama, good thing you're pretty, so. Ooh, I'm in trouble. It's Father's Day. I can't get in trouble today, right? It's a good day. Yeah, they got to forgive me. Yeah. But I remember so many times, going through the car line, and we'd be dropping one of them off, and now it's Molly dropping off in the morning, and they're having a test, and then we always pray with the kids before they get out of the car, and then we'll pray specifically, God help Molly remember the things that she studied, and then God even maybe help her to remember the things she didn't study, right? No, God doesn't do that, okay, kids? You can't just draw that out, teens, And then after they take the test and do things well, or something happens, then you draw those parallels to it. You say, remember, we prayed about this. We prayed that God would help you in this moment. Just something simple like that. And these kind of things are just simple, and you might think, man, it's really insignificant and small, but that it's the small things that build big faith. Connecting the everyday and the ordinary in our life to God. Drawing Him, allowing Him to be a part of even the small things in our life. Because here's one of the things I want us to understand is that I can't talk. Jesus meets us in what feels small, because nothing is too small for Jesus. Nothing is too small for Him. You got to get out of that mindset to where Jesus is only there for the big things of life. Allow Jesus in every aspect of your life. Allow him into those quiet moments, the small spaces, because those are the faith-building things. Don't just wait till the world's falling apart. Start at the simple things. Start at the simple. Jesus wants to, and he sees the small moments. Number 2, Jesus moves on his timeline. Jesus moves when he sees the bigger picture. He knows when it's time to move. He knows when is the right time to perform that miracle for you in your life. Jesus responds here in this instance with a mysterious phrase, "My hour has not yet come." You know, nobody knew really who Jesus was outside of his mama, outside of his family at this point. This is kind of the coming out party where all of a sudden he then starts, this kicks off his 3-year ministry and everything. But he still moves. Still he moved in this insignificant small moment. He tells the servants here to fill 6 jars with water, not wine barrels, not pitchers, but very specifically, he tells them, go grab those 6 stone jars that were used for purification, the Bible says right there. What that means for, they were used for ceremonial cleansing. They were religious pieces, part of the synagogue, part of the temple. And it doesn't make sense on the service. Could you imagine these servants, and Jesus says, go get those 6 water pots and fill them with water. And they might have been thinking, what is he doing? What are you talking about? Fill it with water? And those specifically? Yeah, okay, it just makes no sense. Because those weren't ordinary drinking vessels. They were part of what would have been very known for people in that day, part of the religious order. They were used to wash hands and maintain an outward purity. They were it was all part of their whole religious practice, right? Before they would do anything religious, before they would do stuff in the temple, before the priests and people would enter into the holy places and stuff. You know, they would always have these basins, these ceremonial jars filled with water for people to clean themselves, which is a picture of that old system, right? The old temple system that could only affect the external. It only affected that. It reminded me this week with this. Back when I was on staff at Parkcrest back in Springfield, and we had I was the college pastor there for 5 years. Is one of the hats I wore at the church, and we had and in the college ministry there in Springfield, Missouri, is Missouri State University, and we had our Wednesday night college group and stuff like that. We actually formed a student group at the college, and so we had a ministry kind of there on the college. We were there on Sunday nights, and our whole group just started loving on a bunch of kids that didn't know Jesus and everything, started just going out there on Sunday nights playing soccer and volleyball and different stuff just to build some relationships. Well, we ended up building a bunch of relationships with a bunch of Saudi Arabian students. One of the most incredible things ever. And we get out there, and then we invite several of them to our house at times. And there was this one particular evening, one of the guys' names was Sam. And Sam, we invited him to the house, and Kaylee was actually there that evening at our house in Springfield. One of the most incredible evenings, because we've got about 5 or 6 of our college kids, and Stacy and I, and we got Sam there here, and he's a devout Muslim. He had already, Stacy and I and another young couple, they had invited us to, they had Saudi Arabian nights at the college or whatever, and we had gone in, and he had the honor to read from their scripture that evening. And so he's been coming to church, he's been coming to our group and hearing about Jesus. Like, oh yeah, we're going to go, because just leave that door open for us to tell him about Jesus. Well, we end up having him over to our house that night, and everybody's just asking him tons of questions, about different things, and, about the Muslim faith and about how they go about things. And there's a lot of similarities to the whole religious rite stuff, to like the Old Testament worship. There's a lot of similarities the way they go about things. And but one thing we all know, there's those 2 times a day where they find Mecca and they pray towards Mecca, right? And here on this evening, it was about that time for prayer time. And he just asked all of us, and he says, they were asking about prayer and about that specifically. And he asked us, well, I can just show you because it's that time and stuff like that. Is it okay? And everybody didn't know. Of course, they're in my house and stuff. Nobody knew what to say. Everybody looks at me, and I'm like, sure, why not, So then, and what ties into this, what I thought was so interesting is Sam, and like I said, he was a devout Muslim. And Sam went into the bathroom to prepare himself. And when he came back out, he had water dripping off his face. He had water dripping off his arms and skin. In any skin that was exposed, Sam had water, because he was purifying himself in order to go before his God and pray before his God. And so he gets in there and he goes through his whole routine for about 10 minutes, and up and down and all this kind of stuff. And it was a really interesting moment for us. And it was a really sobering moment for us in a lot of ways, because he was so sincere with his whole ritual routine. But what's pretty cool, through us letting him do stuff like that, we got to tell him about the one true God. We earned the right to tell him about a God that loves him more than anything, and a whole other group of about 12 to 15 Saudi Arabian exchange students. It was one of the most incredible experiences that we've ever had in ministry life. Now, none of them, to what we know of today, actually started to follow Jesus, but they heard about a God that loves them. But this whole thing, here's Sam in our living room coming in, and I just remember him coming out of that bathroom with water. He told us all about the purpose, about being clean and washing and making sure everything was good in order to go through the whole ritualistic, the whole prayer thing there. Because that's what a picture of really what this is a lot of right here, with those ceremonial water jars. And with these things, because they were used for trying to clean the exterior in order to come before a holy God. Now, as we know, that fell short, right? That wasn't the whole. The whole of what God had for us was just for us to be clean externally, because Jesus came so that we would be cleaned internally, right? Through what he was going to do on the cross. And what's pretty cool as we look at this story and continue going on here with this whole thing and talking about 6 water jars, is really this whole first miracle is all about the cross. It's all about the eventual purification that all of us were really going to be able to experience because of what Jesus was about to do in just a few short years on a cross. It's all pretty cool. It talks about, let me tell you this. I thought this was so cool, and I don't want to belabor all this right here. But it is the Bible. I just love the Bible, guys. The Bible is stinking incredible. As you get into this thing and study it and get in more and dig a little bit deeper, it is so rich. Because as you get up and get in here, the Bible is very, very specific. Very specific. And everything has a lot more meaning underneath the surface. And here it is probably for no coincidence that Jesus used 6 water jars. Let me talk about Vav, V-A-V, for just a moment here, okay? In the Hebrew alphabet and in the numbering system, V-A-V, Vav, that stands for the number 6. Vav, though, in the language, I geek out on some of this stuff, okay? So just try to follow me here for a minute. Hopefully I can tie it all together, okay? The Vav is also a conjunctive as well. That ties back to even Genesis chapter 1, verse 1, where it says, in the beginning, God created what? The heaven and the earth, right? That's right, and. And the word and is also vav. Okay, so it represents 6, and it represents the word and. Now, here, this whole thing, picture of Jesus, picture of what was to come. Because what happened, the number 6, there's a whole lot scripturally that kind of revolves around this, okay? Hopefully, like I said, hopefully this will make sense to you as it kind of draw full circle. It took 6 days of creation, right? On the 7th day, God rested. 7 is a picture of God and a picture of that holiness, perfection, 7, right? 6 is a number of man and falls short. We fall short, right? In Jewish tradition, Adam and Eve took of the fruit on a Friday, on the 6th day, in Jewish tradition, okay? And what happened whenever Adam and Eve took of the fruit? The vav between heaven and earth was broken. You follow me? The vav, the 6, that was broken. Now there was this disconnection between heaven and earth, between God and man. Now we fast forward to this time. Jesus says, go get those 6 ceremonial vases, these things that were intended, that could do nothing more than to clean the external, okay? Could do nothing more than that. So then he goes and says, get these 6 ceremonial vases. And then what would Jesus do on the 6th day of the week, on a Good Friday? He would give his life on a cross, right? To restore the vav, the connection between heaven and earth, between God and us. He would restore that vav right there on the 6th day. Isn't it pretty cool how all that comes together? It is so deep. It is not just Jesus performing a miracle to turn water to wine. Great miracle. Awesome stuff. All of you guys, some of you wish you could have that miracle. You don't have it. You'll never be able to do it, okay? But drawing these things together, it is so cool. And then what did they put in? What did Jesus turn the water to? He turns it to wine. What is wine a picture of in the New Testament? It's a picture of Jesus' blood. It is a picture. When we serve communion, it's the bread and the wine is what the Bible teaches, right? What Jesus says, you take the bread, represents his broken, sinless, perfect body that he gave for us willingly on a cross. And his blood that was shed for the redemption of our sins, right? He takes what is ordinary and turns it into something that is extraordinary. He takes these ceremonial vases that could have done nothing but clean the outside and fills it with something that was going to represent his blood that would eventually reconnect heaven and earth so that we could have relationship with him. I hope I didn't lose you in all that. It's just some cool stuff. I actually called Trevor a couple days ago and said, Trevor, I got to talk to somebody about this. This is pretty cool. This whole thing is awesome. I kind of geek out on some of this stuff sometimes. But Jesus came to transform those jars into instruments of celebration. He takes the old and fills it with something new. Because here's what happened. Go back to this story here. Mary tells these servants, just do whatever he says. Whatever he says, just do it. And you know what? These people do it. They just do it. They do exactly what he says. And here's what happens. They were just simply obedient. And obedience opens the door to transformation, even when it doesn't make sense. And it didn't make sense, right? Who says, all right, we got this problem. There's no more wine. Now take these ceremonial jars, fill them with water. You're like, what? Right? But that's what obedience does in the hands of God, right? Just our simple obedience opens the door to transformation. Last thing this morning, Jesus transforms the ordinary. He transforms the ordinary, just like we were just talking about. The water doesn't just become wine. It becomes what? The best wine. This wasn't just a miracle, it was a sign. The Greek word semeion, a divine marker revealing who Jesus is and what he came to do. Jesus transforms ordinary wine, ordinary water, and ceremonial jars used for religious cleaning into rich, abundant wine. He takes the old system of ritual and introduces something new and better that is filled with joy and grace and fullness. And that's what we have. When we have a relationship with Jesus, He fills us with joy, right? He extends grace. He then, he says that he came so that we might live this abundant life, a life to the full that we have in Jesus. And here's the thing, you know what? The master of the feast, as we saw, he was totally stunned. Because what did he say? Everyone brings out the best wine first. But he says, here, you've saved the best until last. Here's the beauty of this whole thing right here, is that with the world, the best is often first, and it leaves you dry. It runs out on you. But with Jesus, the best is yet to come. The best is yet to come. Let me be honest, though. Have you ever struggled with that phrase? I have. I had a conversation with someone here a few weeks ago. Sometimes I struggle with that because we live in this sin-cursed, messed up world, right? How many of y'all man, you had the best week of your life this last week. There was no week better in your whole life than this last week. No? Really? Nobody? Me neither. So, yeah, I've had better weeks. I didn't have a bad week, but I've had better weeks, right? I do. I've often struggled with that terminology here within church, that, man, the best is yet to come. Because sometimes I've had dreams that God didn't fulfill, right? How many times do you want God to intervene in a certain way, and then it doesn't happen but you think, but I was told the best is yet to come, but then my life fell apart, my marriage fell apart, or this happened, and then my kids did this, or this happened, and this happened. And you're thinking, what the heck? I thought the best was yet to come. But this week, I have kind of come to grips with the heart of what it really means of the best is yet to come. Because from a human and earthly perspective, what we view as best and what God views as best is sometimes at odds, is it not? But ultimately, God has a heavenly perspective, and that no matter what this world may throw at us, and because we know, hopefully as His followers, that you can trust His heart and that He has His best interest for you in everything, that we can hold on to the hope that the best is still yet to come. It may not happen, though. Here's the whole kicker. It may not happen here on earth. It may happen in heaven. John the Baptist, if you know his story, you guys know John the Baptist? He's the one, the voice crying in the wilderness, right? The Messiah has come. The Messiah is coming. The Messiah, he was one paving the way for Jesus. Jesus bursts on the scene. John baptizes Jesus. You guys know know that story and everything, right? And then what happens to John? He gets thrown in prison. He's sitting in prison. Jesus gets word of it, and he almost kind of ignores it, and John gets his head lopped off. And we can look at the story and think, well, I guess the best didn't come for him, right? But it probably did, didn't it? He knew he had faith. He wasn't in this world anymore, right? He's face to face with his Savior at that point. The best is yet to come. You know why we don't see the best is yet to come so much in this world? Is because we hold on to this world so tightly. How many times you hold on to the things of this world so tightly to where you can't release those things and just trust God because you want as much as you can get out of this life instead of just living like this, just trusting God, having faith, and keep taking steps. Because ultimately the best is yet to come when you know Him, when you're following Jesus. This miracle points us to a deeper truth, and that Jesus brings a better covenant. He brings grace instead of law. The Old Testament, the whole ritual and going through all the things that they had to do in the temple system, that was going to be abolished, and He was setting forth a new thing called grace. Grace instead of law. He offers fullness of joy, not a sip of hope. He saves the best for last, reminding us that His timing is perfect and His provision never runs dry. That's cool, isn't it? Never runs dry. No matter what you're going through today, and I know there's people going through all different kinds of things in this room. Here's what I want to encourage you with, is that you can hold on to hope. You can hold on to peace. You can have joy in the midst of suffering and trial. Why? Because in Jesus, you can trust that the best is yet to come. But there's more. The miracle also, like we said, foreshadows the cross. The wine at this wedding wasn't just a celebration. It was a preview. Jesus turned water into wine, and later he would offer wine as the symbol of his blood poured out in love. The jars used for ceremonial cleansing were repurposed into vessels of joy on this day, just as the cross, a simple cross, a symbol of shame, would become the means of salvation to the whole world. This moment is a sign that Jesus would bring true cleansing, not from water in stone jars, but through his sacrifice. Remember, Scripture tells us that without the shedding of blood, there is no remission of sin. Jesus' blood had to be shed in order for us to have a relationship with him. It's the way he set it up. It had to happen that way. When Jesus said, "My hour has not yet come," when he said that, he was already looking forward to his sacrifice that he was going to give for us. How he was going to lay his life down for us. Man, what love, guys. What love. We have a God that gave everything. Everything. He gave his life. He let himself be bruised and beaten. He spilled his blood for you. The cross is a symbol of God's love for you. He starts with joy. He burst onto the scene here, this first miracle, and he begins with a picture of joy. But he knows that this joy and what he is foreshadowing was going to cost him everything, and he was still willing to do it. That's the God we follow. That's the Jesus we follow. One who shows up in our ordinary, one who transforms what's broken, one who gives his very life so that we could be made new. Let me ask you this morning one last time, what in your life feels tired, empty, or worn out? I want you to invite Jesus to touch it. I want you to invite him into it, because here's the thing, he still turns water to wine. He still is a miracle performing God. He just wants us to invite him into those, even the small things of life. Be obedient in the small things. Let him transform even the small things. Because it's in those small things, one day when those crises, you're going to be able to stand firm. Why are so many people shaken at the big things? Because they've never learned to allow God into the ordinary. Let him be in the ordinary. Let him be in the everyday things of life. This miracle shows us a Jesus who is present in your everyday, working even when you don't see it, and able to transform what feels worn out. So what do you do with this? Again, like I said, invite Jesus into the ordinary. Trust his timeline. And just simply obey. Obey in the simple things. Because he does the miraculous. And sometimes just out of nowhere. Unexpectedly. Just like he did right here. Let's pray. God, thank you for this day. Thank you for loving.